Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you all. Thank you so much. You know, I get inspired, and I am so optimistic precisely because of young people like Margaret and Adam. So I want to thank you guys for introducing me. And as Jane and I went around this country, we saw hundreds and hundreds of thousands of beautiful young people, just like Margaret and Adam, who love our country, who look around them and know that we can do much better. And they want to jump in, they want to participate, they want to transform America. So guys, thank you so much. Let me also take a moment to introduce my wife, Jane. I think everybody knows Jane. And I've been asked to wish Stella Hayna a happy 100th anniversary. Stella. I love you. All of you know. All of you know. And let me also even begin by thanking the folks in Michigan and in Minnesota for giving us great victories in your states, and the folks in Tennessee, thank you for your support. What our oh, we got Oregon too. I just spoke to Oregon. You got more Oregon here. All right, just Oregon, thank you very much for the great victory we won there. All of you know that we have done politics and look at politics in a little bit different way than other campaigns do. We all know that electing a president is enormously important, and I tried very hard, and with the support of many of you, we ran a really strong race. But what we also know is that real change in America never takes place just by electing a president. It always takes place from the bottom on up through a grassroots movement. Now, taking on virtually the entire establishment, and I want to thank Keith Ellison of Minnesota. I don't know if Keith is here. One of the few. Jeff Berkeley of Oregon, one of the few. But we took on the entire establishment. We took on all of the superdelegates. We ended up this campaign with 46% of pledged delegates, probably 8% of superdelegates. So that kind of tells you what, how the system works. We won over 13 million votes. But the most important point in terms of this campaign is that in every state, we won the overwhelming support of young people under 40 years of age. And that means that our agenda is the future of America. It seems to me that we have a couple of missions in front of us, because we look at politics differently than many others. Issue number one is in the next few months, it is absolutely imperative that we work as hard as we can to make sure that Donald Trump is defeated and Hillary Clinton is elected. And the reason we have got to work so hard is that Donald Trump is the most dangerous candidate to run for president in the modern history of this country. All right, this is a man who does not just want to give tax breaks to billionaires, candidate who believes that climate change is a hoax, wants to cut programs for working people, wants to end the Affordable Care Act, throw 20 million people off of health insurance. All right, that's what Republicans do. But Trump is different. Trump is different in that he is a demagogue. Not all Republicans are demagogues. They may be conservatives, but that doesn't make you a demagogue. What a demagogue is about is running a campaign for president based on bigotry. Based on trying to get one group of people to hate another group of people. And we will never allow that to happen in this country. We will do everything we can to defeat a candidate who insults Latinos and Mexicans, who insults Muslims, who insults women, who insults African Americans. Let us not forget, brothers and sisters, that before Trump was running for president, he was a leader of the so-called birther movement. And be clear about what that so-called movement was about. That was an effort to delegitimize the presidency of the first African-American president we have ever had, based on racism, pure and simple. That type of person must never, ever become president of the United States. But what we also understand, because we understand history, and we understand the trade union movement, and the civil rights movement, and the women's movement, and the gay movement, and the environmental movement, we understand that the struggle for justice continues the day after the election. And that means we do what the media often does not do. And that is understand that politics is not a game. It is not just fundraising and polls and gossip. What politics is about is the real lives of real people. And our campaign is different than many because we have the guts to do something which is not easy. And that is take a hard look at the reality in our country. Now, one reality is everybody here knows that this country is economically a lot better off today than it was when George Bush left office. When Bush left office, we were losing. This was just 8 years ago. 800,000 jobs. 800,000 jobs a month. You all remember that? Yes. We were running up a deficit record-breaking of 1.4 trillion, and the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. That is the economy that Barack Obama walked into, and anybody who is not a horrifically partisan person has got to acknowledge that we are much better off today than we were in those dark days. Yes. But while that is true, and we should be proud of that, there is another reality that we have got to also recognize, and I'm afraid there are some Democrats who do not. And that is that despite the gains that we have made, anybody in this room who thinks that there are not millions of Americans this morning struggling to try to put food on the table and to live with dignity, if you don't know that, you don't know what's going on in this country. So that is kind of the difference between us and other campaigns historically. And that is, we are prepared to take a hard look at truths, even though those truths are painful. Nobody in this room, I think, believes that it is acceptable that in America today, the top 1/10 of 1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. And together we are going to deal with this grotesque and immoral level of wealth inequality. Today, while families in Michigan and in Minnesota and in Tennessee and in Vermont are working longer hours for lower wages, in the last few years, 85% of all new income, 85% gone to the top 1%. Unacceptable. And we are going to continue to fight for an economy that works for all of our people, not just the 1%. I am sure that in this room and in the arena where Secretary Clinton will be speaking tonight, there are many, many veterans who put their lives on the line to defend American democracy. But I want all of you to know what I know you know, is that because of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, American democracy is being undermined. The foundations of American democracy are being destroyed when billionaires like the Koch brothers are able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to buy elections. And let us be very clear, and again, we are unique in our campaign in acknowledging this reality. When you have billionaires buying elections, that's not called democracy, that is called oligarchy. So the struggle continues to transform this country into the country that we all know we can become. And perhaps the most gratifying aspect of this campaign is ideas that some thought were radical and crazy ideas turned out to be ideas that millions of people accepted and believed were absolutely right. It is no longer a radical idea to say that we're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Because that idea, because of your work, is now in the Democratic platform. A platform which is by far the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party. To my friends from Michigan, I visited you, and I was in Flint. And that was, to me, one of the most upsetting moments of the entire campaign. Jane and I were in a very quiet meeting with some of the families whose kids were impacted by the lead in the water in Flint. And to believe that children in America in the year 2016 are being poisoned is beyond comprehension. But it is not just Flint whose infrastructure is collapsing. There are communities all over this country. And now in the Democratic platform, because of your work, we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars creating millions of jobs, rebuilding that crumbling infrastructure. And because of you, right now, there is widespread understanding in this country that the trade policies of this nation over the last many decades have been a failure for the American worker. You know, some people outside of Michigan may not know this, and I have to tell you, I didn't know this, that towns like Michigan and Detroit a few decades ago were some of the most prosperous communities in the United States of America. But you don't stay prosperous when corporations shut down automobile plants and move to Mexico or China or wherever they go. All right? So we are going to change our trade policies, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure this TPP does not get to the floor of the Congress. It's time for these multinational corporations who pay their CEOs millions and tens of millions of dollars in compensation packages. It's time for them to start investing in Michigan and in Vermont and Tennessee, Minnesota, in this country, not just in China. And by the way, it is also time for the United States to join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a right through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Now, I want you to know, those of you who have been part of the political revolution, to know already what you have accomplished. What you've accomplished is not just the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party. What you have also, I didn't do it, you did it. Well, we go together. It's never, never, never has been a one-man show. I don't believe in that, never have. We don't do it unless we go forward together. What has already happened, and I want you to know, some of you have heard me because I've been to all of your states, talking about how in 2016, when we look at education, we cannot just consider public education to be first grade through 12th grade. All right? Now, my view, Secretary Clinton had some very strong ideas, good ideas, on higher education. We came from a slightly different approach. Well, that may be. That may be. But our campaigns work together. And this is where Secretary Clinton is right now. And I want you to hear this because this is important. What she is now proposing is that every family in America with an income of less than $125,000, that's 83% of our population, that those people, those families, should be able to send their kids to public college and university tuition free. Yes. And in that proposal is very strong language to reduce student debt. Now, I believe, and many of you believe, in a Medicare for all single-payer program. All right? That's not Secretary Clinton's position. But what she has agreed to, not insignificant, is a doubling of funding for community health centers all over this country. That means that many, many, many millions more Americans will be able to get primary health care, dental care, which is a big deal. Dental care, a big deal in your states? A lot of people can't find affordable dental care. Mental health counseling. Low-cost prescription drugs is what you get. She is also supporting making public options available in every state in the country if people want to go outside of the private insurance world. And allowing people 55 or older to opt in to Medicare. All right. This is not insignificant. This is major steps forward. So let me just conclude by thanking all of you for all of us understanding that the struggle continues and that what we will be doing in the future is kind of transforming our campaign into another type of organization designed to revitalize American democracy and get people like Margaret and Adam to start running for office. Let us get our young people running for school board, running for state legislature, for city council. Let's get them involved in the political process. So thank you all very much. We have together transformed this country. The struggle continues. The political revolution continues. Thank you all.